My best buddy secretly betrayed me and my family included for her. I found the reality and left without an explanation. Years later, they got here crawling back and begging for forgiveness. The reality that my circle of relatives were hiding from me changed into that my boyfriend Kyle changed into the daddy of Ashley's toddler. I used to be bowled over once I heard my sister and mother communicate approximately it and stumbled into the kitchen, demanding an evidence. Each my mom and my sister have become white as a sheet when they saw me and my sister commenced crying her eyes out. My sister defined to me that during the cease of summer season spoil, Kyle and Ashley attended the identical resident's birthday party, got under the influence of alcohol, and slept collectively. Ashley were given pregnant and informed Kyle, however they have been each ashamed and afraid of telling me. Additionally, they didn't share this with their respective dad and mom. Ashley, however, couldn't preserve the secret and told her moms and dads, who told Kyle's dad and mom, and later to my dad and mom as well. This all befell whilst Ashley became in her first trimester. With the aid of her second trimester, all of my siblings, Kyle's and Ashley's siblings, knew approximately this. Everyone except for me. I certainly cannot explain the way I felt. I used to be physically sick for the next 3 days, and I could not speak to every person. My parents have been apologetic, however defined that they failed to need to peer me hurt or spoil all people's courting. I did now not talk with Kyle or Ashley. Even though they bombarded my telephone with messages and calls and additionally came to my house, I refused to see them. At one point, Kyle's mother came to our house and my mom allowed her into my room. Even as I used to be mendacity in my mattress, nonetheless ill and simply emotionally tired from the betrayal, she attempted to persuade me to forgive them and the way Ashley and the toddler need me. I said nothing. Weeks later, Ashley went into labor. I found out from my mother and father that she had a hard transport. She misplaced a whole lot of blood and wished an emergency C-section. Kyle reputedly turned into at the delivery. I was distraught, inconsolable, due to the betrayal by way of each, because I deliberate to be there and now, physically and emotionally, I could not, due to the fact I was looking forward to this second for months, so many reasons. My older sister without delay went to the health facility to be together with her boyfriend. My other siblings were not at home, so I was left on my own with my parents. All I desired turned into to lay in my mattress or cuddle in my bed with my mom and cry all my feelings out. My mother received a call from Ashley's mother. She got here to my room and instructed me that she and dad were going to the hospital. I used to be at a loss for words and requested her to live with me. She stated that Ashley's dad and mom want all of the aid they are able to get and that we will discuss the whole thing later. I tried to inform her no longer to move and that I also want their guide, however she stated not to be selfish and they left. I used to be left on my own on the residence and that I simply couldn't recognize what came about in the last few weeks. I could not agree with that my mother and father could go and guide someone who harmed me so much, at the same time as I used to be additionally here suffering. Am I in reality selfish to think like that? I do not know when, but my sadness was rage, the kind I by no means skilled earlier then. In a suit of blended emotions and emotions of betrayal, I began packing my baggage and determined to depart home. It did not take some time, but I began having 2D mind and simply sat in the dwelling room feeling empty. After a while, I received a text from my sister. The text said that Ashley gave birth to a wholesome girl and they have been both okay. She attached a PSC of the new child and instructed me they named her Sarah, the name Ashley, and that I selected some month in the past. She dispatched a 2D text a while later, telling me that my mother and father and he or she had been going to join Ashley's and Kyle's mother and father in going to a bar inside the town to rejoice. I do not recollect much after that. I think I used to be just fed on through the entirety and my memory could be very foggy. I left. I took a train and left. I stayed at a hostel in Phoenix for a while. I were given a process at a store and deliberate to complete high school there. My mother and father, siblings, Kyle and Ashley tried to touch me. My mother became sending me a panicked voicemail, traumatic me to they also reported me as a missing person, but I do not think it went everywhere as I used to be 18. Quickly in a while, I met Dean. He also lived in Phoenix and had a complicated relationship along with his family. We surely related and became buddies quickly. He helped me plenty at that point. I struggled. I had no concept how to take care of myself or the way to literally be a grown-up. He added me to his organization of pals, helped me finish high college. I moved in with him and his buddies. He helped me address my ache. He became there for me and supported me via the entirety, and that I do not suppose I'd have lasted lengthy without him. We began relationship after a year. He decided to transport throughout the USA to the massive city. Even though we were not collectively for lengthy, he requested me to go with him. I was a chunk reluctant due to the fact we both had numerous emotional bags and I used to be nevertheless very insecure in my scenario, however I did cross. We moved, got jobs, and attempted to live to tell the tale. Quickly after my 21st birthday, we determined to get married. It became a crazy, spontaneous choice, however we did it. I enrolled in college and Dean helped me pay for it. He himself opened an enterprise that took off and we were able to live more readily. I used to be in uni and additionally worked an element-time job to contribute. We had our ups and downs, however by hook or by crook survived. After uni, I commenced working in his organization and we slowly built it up. When I appearance again now, I don't assume I was in love with Dean whilst we were given married. I loved him, however I wasn't in love. But he changed into there for me, constantly, unconditionally, and nowadays, I do not assume I ought to love him greater. He's the love of my life. We have been married for 12 years now and we've a 2-year-old son and a 6-month-old son. On occasion I regretted leaving my circle of relatives behind, but I just could not pass again. It became very painful. I felt like my mother and father selected Ashley and Kyle over me. I did go to a therapist while I used to be 25 and tried to deal with my emotions. Last year, at the start of the pandemic, I received an email from a 14-year vintage woman named Evelyn. She defined that she was my niece, my older sister's and Kyle's brother's child. She knew about me and desired to fulfill me. Although I used to be reluctant to speak to her, we did change some emails. Let me word that she did now not realize what transpired 15 years ago, so the conversations have been pretty innocent. We pointed out her school, interest, and she or he talked about my own family. I discovered I had 10 nieces and nephews. I additionally learned that Kyle married Ashley 4 years after I left and had 2 sons besides Sarah. My parents persisted to have a friendship with Kyle's and Ashley's family, and to me, it truly felt like my family persisted their everyday existence, despite me being long past. She attempted to speak to me approximately what came about, however I failed to really suppose it turned into my vicinity to explain things to her. So I sincerely said that relationships trade and matters manifest in existence that make us pass our separate ways. We persevered talking occasionally for almost 12 months. In her email this January, she expressed how the pandemic had a large effect on her complete family and the way my parents were struggling to keep their house and each my brothers lost their jobs and struggled to preserve up with the cost. I was amazed at her knowledge of this as she became handiest 14, but the difficulty turned into additionally causing tensions among her parents. I started to address lots of guilty feelings and regrets. I additionally just had my toddler, in order that became inflicting me masses of emotions. I talked to my husband and he became very supportive and informed me that he could be there for me for whatever I determine. We're financially strong and the pandemic did not have a high-quality effect on our finances. We are not wealthy but are capable of live readily. After mastering a few more information and speaking with Dean, we determined to assist my figure with their house. Per week ago, we flew again to my domestic kingdom. I saw my circle of relatives for the primary time in 15 years. I had such a lot of emotions, regrets, pains from the past, emotions of betrayal. My dad and mom have been, I suppose, relieved to look me. It became just such a peculiar day. We had a lengthy communique and agreed to try and have a few form of cordial courting. It has been see you later and I am very awkward with them. Occasionally they experience like strangers. Dean and I spent every week there and we endured to have a verbal exchange. And I certainly believed that we had been on a direction to having a pleasant yet remote courting. However, my mother began insisting I have a take a seat down communication with Kyle and Ashley. She defined that she wants to go lower back to the way things were. I advised her I refused to speak to them. Despite the fact that I moved on, I really have no ties with them now and do not need to rehash anything with them. I told her I'm prepared to try to set up a relationship with them as they're my own family and I certainly came to care for my niece, but that I don't want whatever to do with Kyle, Ashley, or their family. I by no means demanded that they cease their relationship with their pals, but I do not want one. Dean supports me. My mother called me selfishly and said that I genuinely must try to heal our dating. I instructed her I cannot negotiate and that it is on her to decide whether or not she desires to have a dating with me. She said okay. However, days later I acquired a smartphone call from Kyle's mother. I did not give her my variety. And she demanded, I speak with Kyle and Ashley as my return caused tensions in their dating and their emotional fitness. I hung up. I known as my mom and faced her. Seemingly, she gave that girl my number to heal our own family bonds. I informed her that she is deciding on them over me again. She cried and yelled at me that I am selfish and that she just desires her family returned. I hung up. It's been days on the grounds that I spoke to any of them, although my mom and Kyle's mom hold on calling. Even though I assume I am proper and I agree with I ought to prioritize my properly being and the nicely being and happiness of my husband, who has been in the back of me 100% and even told my mom off, and my sons, I am starting to have some regrets. I don't know if I must concentrate to my mom and talk to Ashley and Kyle. I question whether I used to be overreacting 15 years ago. I am thinking whether or not I am actually being egocentric for no longer actively trying to repair the connection. Replace. I lately found out plenty about my little sister. Her dating with my dad and mom went downhill once I left domestic, and she went no contact with them whilst she was 20. I received her variety from our older sister, and even though it became awkward in the beginning, it's been 15 years in any case, we did start speaking once more. She become very irritated at me for leaving. Plenty has occurred in her lifestyles, and it wasn't the perfect. She has an infant and a child of her very own, and I've to say that the youngsters have helped us bond once more. She's my best friend and we speak each day. As for my other siblings, I am in normal contact with each my brothers, although we aren't near. My older sister and I have a great courting now, but final year we had an extended period of now not speak me. As she is married to Kyle's brother, it was hard for her to address all our and their family drama. We're cool now, and I've a cute courting with my nieces and nephews. I didn't visit my niece's birthday celebration. It just regarded like it might be too tough for me. Now to my dad and mom, my mom didn't permit up with pestering me over no longer speaking with Kyle and Ashley. Her requires that continued for months, even after I was home again. It bordered on emotional blackmail. She blamed me for now not honoring her desires, for her friendship issues, and health issues, and even accused me of retaining her grandbabies from her. Last June I had my daughter, and it seems like that dispatched her completely over the rail. What I imply with the aid of that, 100 calls an afternoon, messages every 20 minutes to pester me about random matters, sending me updates approximately human beings I by no means want to know approximately. When she began pestering Dean, I used to be achieved. I used to be afraid to block her, so I spoke to my father. This changed into probable the first time in the final 17 years that we had a real coronary heart-to-coronary heart communication. I used to be emotionally tired from worrying for 3 kids, and just over the entirety. I've possibly poured all my emotions and feelings onto him. IDK what happened to them later on, he would not talk tons about it. Her calls slowly ceased and something else need to have took place because in August he filed for a divorce. My father and I are in regular contact, even though I don't assume we will ever be back to normal. Mom is devastated. In August her calls have become insane and reputedly no longer just with me. I have modified my range for the reason that then and as of final month she has not been able to attain me. I've been informed by certainly one of my brothers that she has issues with anxiety and depression, and lost plenty of friends. I do not absolutely realize whether or not she maintains to have a courting with Kyle and Ashley's own family. I do not need to have something to do together with her anymore, nor do I need her near my youngsters. The matters she's stated to me, approximately me and approximately my husband, whom she certainly does not understand, and after 15 years of no contact, is crazy. Although I regret now not having a mom, I sense like trying and combating to restore the little remnants of our dating might be a waste of my emotional electricity and simply natural torture. As for Kyle and Ashley, I've obtained some calls from Kyle's mother. I blocked her and no other calls were obtained from all of us. I truly don't know what they're doing or where they may be. I've had no touch with them. The simplest component that definitely took place is that, in August whilst shit went downhill, my brother-in-law, Kyle's brother, brought me a letter seemingly written via Ashley. I've now not opened it and that I genuinely do not know if I need to. I sense like I have moved on from them. However, alternatively, I'm curious as to what she has to say after so many years. Replace 2. All through the previous few months, a lot has occurred. I have not examined the letter yet. Quickly after updating, I started Remedy again and Dean, and that I decided that it would be quality if I gave the letter to my therapist and let him decide while and if I'm ever prepared to read it. I have no longer spoken to my mother either. I have acquired messages on Facebook from her and Ashley's mom, the latter I didn't even study. I've in view that deactivated my FB at the moment. Neither Kyle nor Ashley tried to touch me through any social media. Remaining week, my dad become in town. For the primary time in almost to a long time, we had an open, sincere verbal exchange in character. I must admit it become a lot and I used to be no longer top for some days afterwards. However, it become vital. I discovered lots about my mother and the time between them gaining knowledge of Ashley became pregnant and my return years in the past. At this point, I trust that my mom is grieving the lack of a decent own family friendship unit that we had whilst I was more youthful. She has yet to recognize that none of her 5 kids communicate or see her. None of her grandchildren see her. None of us speak to her. That during itself would be the end for me. I cannot imagine what emotional state she need to be in. All of us agree that she needs psychological or psychiatric assist. My dad actually referred to as her in the front of me and I got the courage to speak to her. The best aspect I said to her become, "Mother, for the final whilst you've got invaded my personal existence and my privateness and methods this is inexcusable. I do now not know why you believe you studied you deserve to recognize how my existence is, but I'm inclined to offer you a risk. No matter all the ache you have got placed me through, I need you to are seeking for expert assist, whether or not that be a ward, a therapist, or anything alongside the one's lines. If you say something else other than sure and best sure, I can permanently reduce contact with you." She spoke back with, "How dare you are saying that?" And that I reduce her off, telling her she just ignored the handiest trade became ever going to get. My dad hung up the smartphone. He flew lower back out the day once we stuck up. I am very satisfied to have a courting with him that I suppose I might be working on restoring. He regarded very apologetic for what they did and instructed me he understands I owe no person forgiveness. My mom has not contacted me due to the fact that ultimate week. I suppose she subsequently understands I'm truly completed with her.